In this video, I want to have a look at trig ratios. So the trigonometric ratios compare the lengths of two sides in a right-angled triangle. So we have three trig ratios. The first one is called the sine ratio, so S-I-N-E, and it compares the length of the opposite side to the length of the hypotenuse. So to write that abbreviated, so shorter, we write S-I-N, so we just drop the E off, but we still pronounce it sine. So sine of the angle in our triangle, which we represent by theta, is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. So sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Our second ratio is called the cosine ratio, and it compares the length of the adjacent side to the length of the hypotenuse. So the way we write that one is we write cos. So instead of writing the whole word cosine, we abbreviate it to cos. So cos of theta, which is our angle, is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. All right, our very last trig ratio is called the tangent ratio. So the tangent ratio compares the other two sides. We've already got the opposite with the hypotenuse, the adjacent and the hypotenuse. The only combination we don't have yet is the opposite and the adjacent. So the way we write that is we write tan of theta, so tan is abbreviated for tangent, is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side. All right, so we've got these. To help you remember them, we come up with a shortening. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tan is opposite over adjacent. So if you remember these, we can remember the word Sohcahtoa and remember how to spell it as well. So we can remember the word Sohcahtoa. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan is opposite over adjacent. So we need to remember that word. It often helps when you're solving problems to do with trig to write Sohcahtoa across the top of your page so that you can look back to it and figure out which ratio we need to use. All right, so let's have a look at identifying those ratios. So our question says, for each of the following triangles, state as a fraction the value of sine theta, cos theta, and tan theta. So let's go through it for this first triangle. So the first one we want to do is sine theta. So before we figure it out, we need to identify which side is our hypotenuse, which one's our opposite, and which one's our adjacent. So the hypotenuse is always the longest side, and it's always opposite our right angle. So that's our hypotenuse there. Then we need to look from our angle theta. The side opposite that is going to be our 4, and the side next to that theta is going to be our 3. So that's our adjacent. So we've got our hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. Now we need to remember Sohcahtoa. So if we want to write sine, we want the opposite over the hypotenuse. So that would be 4 over 5. Part 2 asks us for cos theta. So cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. So in this triangle, that would be 3 over 5. And the last one, it asks us for tan theta. So tan is opposite over adjacent, which in this triangle is 4 over 3. Okay, so that's just one example of identifying the three trig ratios in a triangle.